G'day and welcome to another episode of the Andrew Price Podcast, the podcast for serious artists. I am joined on the call by a concept artist by the name of Richard Anderson. Welcome, Richard.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. Oh, there, how would
yeah,
you start it off?
Yeah, he's off to a rocking start, tipped over the microphone. Do you want to start by maybe explaining actually your what would you call it? Your pseudonym? Flaptraps.
The Flaptraps, yeah. That could actually start off my little art career as well. My little handle of Flaptraps actually comes so I graduated high school in 2000, and I don't know for like anybody younger back then, like apparently you weren't supposed to use your real name ever on the internet. And my roommates, when I moved to Seattle for art school, they told me, no, you have to use a nickname. And I've had this nickname since I was about 13 years old. My best friend's little brother, I was staying over at his house, and apparently when I get really tired, I talk a lot. And he called me Flaptraps, and I think I was like in 7th grade at the time. And then it just stuck with me all through high school. Like even on my basketball
team.
So
it was your
team,
friend
it was on the back of my
called you that.
My friend's little brother, actually, that's the one. And then it was on my warm-up jersey for basketball. It was everywhere. So
wow.
Yeah. And then
nice.
When I started school, and we started getting on the forums and stuff, and all that stuff was like so brand new to me that I was like, okay, I'll be by like Flaptraps. And then I used it so much, and now it's just too late. It's like I can't get rid of it, and it's just what my company's name is now. And it's like, all right, there we go. Don't look
true.
it up on Urban Dictionary. Has a different definition, but
I bet it does.
It's not that definition.
Oh, yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah. I know what you mean. I've got my old email address. Redbyte, because when I was 13 and I played Tribes, you have to have a nickname. That was my cool name. I was Redbyte, and I'm stuck with it for life, probably. That's just how it is.
Yeah, that's the way it went through, and it actually, some people actually think it's kind of cool, which I'm always kind of like surprised, because if I was a stranger, I'd be like, yeah, that is kind of a weird one. But the bonus is that when you look up Richard Anderson in Google, it's a very common name, so the only thing I really have going is like you look up Flaptraps, it's the first thing you see, so it works out well.
Right, yeah, true. Yeah, I was gonna say when I was like looking up, because I only knew you from Flaptraps because it's so memorable, and then I was like, wait, Richard Anderson. Oh, is that his real name? That almost sounded like a fake name, like John Doe or something.
Yeah. Richard Lawrence Anderson. It sounds pretty official for a trailer trash kid. I was like,
Nice. Well, let's actually, first of all, let's do a short bio for you. Who are you for people who don't know who you are?
Yeah. So obviously everybody knows Richard Anderson, and then I'm known as Flaptraps on any sort of social media and stuff. I am a concept artist / illustrator and storyboard artist. I kind of break it down that way. I started my career in 2003 at ArenaNet on the Guild Wars franchise, which is it was a pretty popular big MMO and still is. That's where I got my introduction into the game industry as an 3D environment artist, basically making wagons and rocks and stuff. I wasn't quite good enough to be a concept artist yet, and so I worked my way up into being a concept artist. Took about 5 years, and then over that time I spread out into bigger stuff. I got a little bit more recognition, and I moved to London in 2011 to work in film, where I worked on Aliens, Ridley Scott's Prometheus. And then the big title I worked on that I really enjoyed was Guardians of the Galaxy. And then other stuff I've done is I worked at Rocksteady Studios on the Arkham Knight, the 3rd Batman game that came out. And then I moved back into film, and there I worked on a few. Captain Marvel was one, and was it Transformers? I think there's the 5th one, And then, I mean, and then I moved into, I do spread myself around quite a bit because I do have a kind of like this whole other side illustration career and like book covers and stuff. And I've illustrated, excuse me, about about 50 covers, I think, so far. And I actually, the most proud one I just did was this last year. I got asked to do the Witcher cover for the U.S. print. Um,
Oh wow.
and
Okay. Nice.
yeah, that was by Orbit Books. And then, other than that, I worked at ILM for a bit, and that's where I worked a lot on the Eternals, the Marvel's Eternal movie. And
Mm-hmm.
then I also worked on, it has been announced, it's on IMDb, but Gareth Edwards, I worked pretty closely with him, helping with story beats and everything like that for his new film called True Love. Uh, and then from there, where I worked at a Tencent studio here in London for a bit, a startup basically. And now I'm going into a whole new role as a concept art director for NetEase Games on a brand new project with them. So,
Dude,
yeah,
wow. You've been everywhere.
yeah. I
What
mean,
was so? When did you start? What year was that? In
it
the
was
industry?
January. Yeah, my first day of work at ArenaNet was January 20th, 2003. So I just passed my 20 year.
Whoa.
Yeah,
No
every time.
way. Really?
Yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's
I started.
crazy.
I was 20. Yeah, I just turned 21, so I'll be turning 42 here pretty soon. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah,
And let's walk it back. What when did you get involved in the arts? Like have you always been a creative kid? You doodling in school? Like how
yeah,
did you walk us through how you got that first job?
yeah. So, well, I mean, you can start it out pretty early on. Like the art stuff, like any real artist, it like comes pretty naturally. It's like, I always say it's more of a passion than talent. It's like
Mhm.
you just want to do it all the time. So, and tell you the truth, I was really I really had trouble in school, so I knew that if I was going to do anything, it had to be art related. And I also knew that it came kind of more naturally to me than other people. Like I kind of you start to notice that as a teenager, especially like
Mm.
how much like you can kind of read stuff easier than they can or something. Um,
Mm.
so it was really it was really kind of just something I knew that I really really wanted to do. And also I was always into entertainment art, which is like more like I didn't know video game like you could work in video games. That wasn't really a thing that was all over because you know what I mean, like this 1993 and 94 when I'm trying to figure out like where I'm going. But like comic books were massive to me, so that was a big influence for me. And
Hmm.
so the way I got into art was I had a really good art teacher, and she kind of pushed me to go to. She was like, "Oh, you should move to Seattle because that was like the closest big city from." I grew up in Montana, and it's pretty, it's pretty rural and a little bit far away. So, yeah, I was kind of pushed to go to Seattle, where I went to Seattle Art Institute, which is that school was shut down. uh, it
Oh,
wasn't
true.
the
Okay.
best school. Yeah, yeah. It wasn't the best school, but what it did do is, introduce me to a whole new group of people that I kind of we all kind of saw eye to eye and kind of influenced each other and stuff like that. And um, yeah, so that was in 2000, and it was a short like trade school, and you basically go to school for 2 years, and that's where I just really concentrated on drawing because I figured we've kind of figured out drawing was like the most important thing, and all these like sorry 3D artists, but it was like 3D was going to come easier to me once I started learning the basics of like form and everything like that. So I
Mm.
really concentrated on just life drawing and drawing in general and traditional skills, and then I started to adapt it into the digital space. And
Okay.
then
Right.
yeah, I worked at Barnes and Noble, which is like a bookseller, and then I just
Okay.
applied for jobs, and I was like, tell you the truth, I was really bad, so I always feel very lucky that I was hired when in at ArenaNet. And ArenaNet was a very small studio at the time too. I was the ninth or the eighth employee of the studio, and I
No
don't know if you've ever
way.
heard of the studio, but it's like when I left, there was like 300 something people, and by the time I left, I was like the fourth person because even two of the founders left. So uh, yeah, so
Wow.
I was just lucky to you know be thrown in with this group very very early on, and then what it was cool because and go ahead and interrupt me at any point because I can ramble.
No,
But
no, it's all
like
good. It's interesting. Okay.
yeah, so I was very lucky in the startup was looking for basically they're looking for any environment like younger artists and stuff like that to kind of help, and the studio actually ended up hiring a bunch of younger artists, which is my mates that I went to school with ended up working with me as well, and we were all roommates at the same time, but we were all pretty hard workers. Excuse me, and they yeah, so that's just basically how we all got started, and that was I think yeah January 2003, and then I shipped my first title. Guild Wars shipped in April. I think it was like April 17th, 2005. I want to say.
Okay. Yep.
So that was a big deal shipping your first title. I was like, oh wow,
Yeah,
and
that's cool. Okay.
it did pretty good. So
So you were based. So you were at Barnes and Noble, and
mhm.
you were just on the like studying at the Seattle Art Institute.
Institute, yeah.
Yep. And then at some point you saw a job opening at ArenaNet, and you just what sent them an email.
No, so that was something I did. No, man. Like, so I graduated. So I was going to school at the same time, obviously, and this is like my side job, and I was working. And basically, I graduated in September 2002, and then basically all I did. There used to be a site. I think they changed the site name to something else, but there used to be the most popular site to apply for jobs for games was called Gama Sutra. Do you remember that site?
That does ring a bell. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I think they changed it because it is kind of a weird title now. But like,
Yeah.
uh, so I just remember I would wake up seriously every morning, and I didn't care where the job was or anything, and I would just apply. I would apply to any game job. I was not picky, and I had
You were
these
just a
massive.
spammer, basically.
Yes, and I had these massive student loans, and I was pretty nervous, and like. You're so hungry, you just were like, I'll do anything. And like, so I just applied every morning. And, it's constant denial, obviously, like September to January. But yeah. And then that's what I did. And they're pretty local, as a local studio. And yeah, I applied. They came in. The one thing that is weird and different that you won't see now is, so I go into it, and this is like my first. I had one other interview before this at, God, what was that? Surreal Studios, and that's been shut down now. But um,
Okay.
that was a that interview. When you're a student and you have no experience, you don't know anybody in games, you don't know anything, and you go into this studio and it seems all fancy. And I remember being so intimidated, and I don't think the art director actually wanted me there at all. I think HR just, kind of was like, "Hey, interview this kid," because I could tell this
Oh,
guy was like,
true.
he was like, "I'm not having this at all," and I was like, "Oh shit!" And then I had this was technically my second interview, and I go in there, and they're like, they ask me some pretty simple questions. It's like, what do you ask a kid? He's like, I'm just like, please give me a job, and I brought my sketchbook with me, and they look at the sketchbook and they're like, so you like drawing this stuff? And I was like, yeah, I like monsters and blah, blah, blah. It's normal nerd stuff. And then they're
Yeah.
like, okay, so we're going to have you do an art test. And I was like, okay. And it was funny how confident I felt that I was like, okay, yeah, just give me something. And they're like, all right, so we're going to give you 30 minutes. And it was a traditional test. I was just drawing with pen and paper. And they were just like, come up with some monster ideas. And I was like, okay. And I just sketched for like 30 minutes. And then they came back and they're like, oh, okay, do you want the job? And I was like, yes, please. And so,
Oh,
yeah, it
damn.
was,
So those
yeah,
sketches
so,
must have been pretty sweet.
well, at least I'm sure if we saw him now, we would think differently. But, to the founder and the art director at the time, they thought it was good enough. So it turned out
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
that's.
saw
I mean,
something
that's.
at least.
Yeah, get job on the spot. That's pretty rare. That's
Yeah.
that's great.
And
Okay.
doing a traditional art test in person is a little bit not, that's usually not how it goes. Yeah.
True. Yes. Yes. That's right. Okay. Great. So you were there for how many years at
I
ArenaNet?
was there for just about 8.5 years. Yeah.
8.5. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And it was producing Guild Wars.
Yeah. So there's
Guild
Guild
Wars.
Wars, and Guild Wars was made by some pretty hardcore core people at Blizzard, and they wanted to start their own studio. And these guys, they worked on everything, man. They like, one of them was like the big like architect and creator of like the WoW engine and all this stuff. So these were like really like, these guys knew what they were doing. And yeah, they wanted to make their own game, and that's what started off with Guild Wars. And then yeah, they like created BattleNet and stuff. So it's like they really knew the whole online MMO like competitive thing, and it did pretty well the first game. But like most games, the sequel always will do better than the first one. And then yeah, and then we started working on Guild Wars 2. And I wasn't there, unfortunately, for shipping Guild Wars 2, but believe me, I did work on it for a long time, so I did take some credit on it.
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
I left in 2011 and it shipped in 2012, but I was on it for
Okay.
a long time, so I kind of think.
Damn.
So yeah, I mean, the only thing that was a little bit, might be a little bit different is that whole stepping from being a 3D environment artist, hired as that, and like painting ground textures and stuff like that, and then moving into the concept department, which it did take me about, it's somewhere around 4.5 to 5 years, I think.
Wait. So you were okay. I missed that part. So you were just environment art. So you were working in 3D, making props.
Yeah, so when I told you I was learning drawing in school, so this was good. My mates that I was with, they everybody kind of realized it. It's like, no, we need to concentrate on getting good at drawing, because we were just told by somebody, it's like, dude, everything will become easier once you get good at that. So we really concentrated on that. And towards the end of school, I was like, I kind of did a crash course for 3ds Max and low poly modeling, box
Okay.
modeling, basically, you
Okay.
know. And I was like, I learned a little bit of that and some unwrapping and stuff. And back then you only had like one material pass, on your characters and stuff. You would paint something 512 by 512, and like that was literally your character's texture sheet. So like I just had a little bit of that in my portfolio. And then, so when I was hired as a junior environment 3D artist, and they basically just needed somebody to make rocks, but they did find it a bonus that I was able to concept, like I could actually draw some other stuff for even other artists on the team. So I guess from the start I was kind of doing some concept stuff, but that wasn't my main job. Like, it was really a crash course, man. That was pretty stressful, I won't lie. Like, they're like, hey, can you do this? And I was like I had a little bit in my portfolio, but I had no idea what I was doing, man. I was learning Max like on the fly. And yeah, you don't have YouTube or anything to look up. Like, if you don't know Max, you have to go to the bookstore, and there's a giant like Max 3ds Max for Dummies, or like these
Oh my
massive
god.
like
Yeah.
books. And it's just so funny now that I was like, yeah, it was like, you learn so much more on the job as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad for it though. It was a good experience to like learn, be a little bit more of the pipeline and know how, some things work and stuff.
Yeah. Right. And so it was. You got. It sounds like you got in the door for your concept art skills, because you were drawing monsters for your art test. And then the job was environment props.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So my art director at the time, Barry Sun, thank you, Barry, for hiring me. But like, he said that's actually what he said, I think, in the interview. He was like, oh, I can teach you the 3D stuff. I can't teach you this stuff. So they can't teach you the drawing and all this, like the kind of, I think, the creative part of it, but they can teach you like, how to use, how to model a wagon and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I think that it was more about the potential.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that's how it went.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm glad it was good. Turned out all right.
Yeah, yeah, not bad. Yeah, it
No,
was a pretty sweet start for your career, really.
yeah,
Getting a job at ArenaNet.
I tell you the truth. Like, I actually feel pretty lucky. Like, this is where some people go, "Oh, how much of it is luck when you're doing like certain parts of your career?" And I'm like, the ArenaNet was actually super lucky. And I tell people because they had nothing to do with my what I was doing and how much work I was actually putting in. Like, that's where like maybe my skill set, comes in. But like, um, the people you meet, that's pure luck. Like, the people the company
Mm,
hires and the kind of the group that they put together, like, you have no control really over that, especially as like a junior artist. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
so the people that we were surrounded with at that studio, like, we hired NCSoft hired an art director. ArenaNet was owned by NCSoft, just to let you know. So
Okay, sure.
NCSoft hired a new art director, Daniel Dochu, who was already kind of a big, well-known name, and he's pretty amazing art director and artist himself. And then he hired like my other mates that I went to school with that are amazing artists, and they're quite popular too now as well. Keikai Kotaki and Levi Hopkins, and then we hired a little. You probably, I think, every other concept artist knows who this is. But then we hired a young student by the name of Jamie Jones. Um, have you ever heard of him?
Mm-mm.
He's like, oh, it's funny because he's actually probably one of the most popular concept artists, I think, in the world. Maybe like,
Oh, damn.
yeah, he's like huge. So he was. I remember when we hired him, he was about 20 because he wasn't allowed to go to a bar then or anything. I do remember that. And like we hired them, and then we hired this guy Matt Barrett, and like Doug Williams, and we kind of like they kind of started to build this team that was really inspirational, like concept team, and uh,
Oh, I've seen Jamie
without
Jones's
these
stuff. Okay,
guys,
yep.
yeah,
Beautiful.
without these guys, there is no way I would learn or be where I'm at, like without
Mm,
learning from these people around me for sure. So I think working at ArenaNet, it was very lucky. It was a really good experience. It was
yeah. Yeah, it's there's definitely some I don't know what you call it, serendipity in the getting a bunch of people together. And if like because that's the thing, you can have like like a superstar at a studio, but if the other people there aren't hungry to learn and willing to learn, then it doesn't really spread. But you can get, yeah, like once a culture develops of like we really need to get good, let's get good together, like it can really explode. And I think that's where you see those like, yeah, like just places in the world where industries sort of happen. You know, LA for
yeah,
the entertainment or Silicon Valley for tech. It's like they get that little crowd together and they're all just like, and it just
yeah.
shoots up. But yeah, it's a
We
bit of luck, but also you had the right mindset of wanting to learn.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I think. Like you said, serendipity, where people are actually on the same track. And the good thing, I think, a healthy thing was there was a healthy competitiveness where, like, like I knew I wasn't as good as the other guys. And I'm still not, but you still like, I was still like, oh no, I still want to try. Like, I've got a hunger to like learn more and get better. Um, and I think there was a good bout of that, but it also kept the workplace healthy, so there wasn't like this weird. There was never like a jealousy because I think people were very. Well, it was nice. People were very self-aware of who can do what and stuff like that. And um, but like you said, yeah, the the good part was I think Daniel cultivated, and I have to give it to the founders as well. They're all programmers, engineers, and they did let up on the reins as well. Like they kind of were like, okay, let's let this art team, and I have never experienced another place like this. They literally were like, let's let this art team do its thing, and then we'll see what we can do with it later, you know. And every
Hmm.
other place I've worked, man, you do not have near the freedom that we had as far as like
Oh,
like
true.
the
Wow.
kind of work and stuff we were doing and stuff. So, you know,
Yeah.
and part of that, I don't think maybe it's the time and the place too, because you have to remember technology and like I was talking about like just the material passes, the way games were made was just so much different than now that I do understand why, you know, the kind of the production that has to go and the kind of the control and like the pipeline they have to make for, you know, games now, they're just so
Mm.
technical that you can't just let artists be like, oh, I'm just going to do whatever I want, you know.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
It's,
Slapping
yeah.
together textures in Photoshop doesn't really cut it anymore.
No, no, especially when you got to pass it on to like, you know, just the amount of like technical stuff that goes into games now is, I mean, it's
Yeah.
amazing. I love it, but yeah. So it's a time and a place as well, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Are you still? What was the last game job that you did?
It was just recently with there's a Tencent studio called Shark Mob,
Oh,
but it's a
okay.
brand new London studio. So Shark Mob started I think about 5 years ago in Sweden, and it's guys from Massive that started a new studio, and then they were working on one of these battle royale games. It was like Vampire the Masquerade, and then something else. But then Tencent wanted to open up a Shark Mob London studio,
Okay.
so they opened up that, and then we were working on a new IP. Um, that was for that I really can't say anything more
Yeah,
than
yeah.
that.
Got
and
it.
then
Got it.
um, And then, yeah, and I just left in October, and I start a new little adventure with NetEase Games this Wednesday. Actually, is my first day, so
Mm.
we'll see.
Okay. Exciting stuff. In
Yeah,
in
it's
in.
I'm an art
Oh, sorry.
director now too. Oh, I was going to say now I've moved after 20 years. I'll be a concept art director, which is a new step for me as well. So,
Ooh, the coveted role, right? The one everyone
uh,
wants.
yeah, yeah, it should be fun. It's good. It's
Yeah.
good to challenge yourself too, I guess, you know, you hit that certain point.
That's the one where you get to basically carve out your vision, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
all the other minions have to follow your lead, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully I just put out a good influencer. Uh,
It's
try
exciting.
try
Very
my best.
exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think? Going back to you said the games have changed technically. Um, yeah, maybe explain for people who don't know how, and what has changed in games, and
So
why.
this isn't across the board, but the amount of different software you use has definitely changed. Like I said, when I came into the games, especially working now, I'm speaking from somebody who was working on an MMO in 2003. So you can just imagine the tech and what those games look like. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
MMOs in general, everybody knows like it's just the amount of players, all that stuff. Like you don't get the same texture, you know, memory and all that stuff that you. So when I came in, it was very normal for you. Oh, and we didn't really have procedural stuff either. That was a big thing. A lot of things was kind of handcrafted, at least in our engine, because a lot of people,
Mm.
we had a custom engine as well, which is not as common anymore. A lot of people, you know, everybody has, you know, that's obviously it's Unreal or, you know, some studios have their own, but I don't think it was as common back then. But it was very normal for, like I said, if I was making rocks, it would be modeling the rocks, and then you're the texture, and it was the same with like characters. And I never really did characters, but it was very normal now for you know, some studios do, they get to texture their characters, but sometimes they pass it on, and now it's like they're dividing stuff into really specialty stuff. You know, it's like
Mm. Mm.
um, you know, the and believe me, I don't know everything about this. Like every time I go into a new studio, I'm always like learning because I feel like it's it's moving so fast. But um, just watching the transition when I was, for instance, when I was at Rocksteady, watching how much Substance Painter changed everything. Like it was like 1 minute there's no Substance Painter, and then the next, like in 3 months, it's like, oh no, that's just what you use now. It's like it seemed like the
Wow.
transition was just like bloop. And the same when ZBrush came in, like ZBrush, and then I think
Right.
shortly after, I don't know which one was first, but I'm pretty sure it was ZBrush. But then shortly after, Mudbox came in, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, now you start to use normals. Were something I remember the first time we saw normals at E3, and it was on the Riddick game, Chronicles of Riddick. I don't know, it's like
Oh,
2004 or
was
something.
it?
It wasn't the first time it was used. It was the first time I saw it, where I was like, they're
Oh,
showing the
right.
tech, and I was like, oh man. And so I guess just seeing those transitions when I'm talking about just all the material passes people are dealing with, it's like I don't even know. Like sometimes,
Mm,
it seems like some games, you've got 6, 7, 8 material passes and stuff, and uh, when I
it's true.
started, it was like you've got one. Like you've got,
Yeah.
like I said, it was like, and then sometimes you would have two. Like you would have a specular alpha or something, just if you had some metallic stuff that you would like have
Right.
to
Want to
shine.
shine. Uh huh.
Yeah,
Uh
but
huh.
then it's not that common, and the yeah, I mean, it seems like, yeah, I mean, rigging is also used to be, as far as when I first started, rigging was done by the same character people. Now rigging is a completely separate specialty and department that are usually they walk a fine line from technical artists and riggers, in my experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's so important in games as well now, like it's like to have awesome rigging, and the special effects now are nuts.
Mm.
So when I'm
Yeah.
speaking about how much things have changed, it's just like we've just got so many more options and power that it's
Mm.
just like it creates more jobs, I'll say that, which is good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Until
there's this.
AI. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
get
that's right.
into get into that talk.
You mentioned it first. We'll come back to that. But yeah,
Okay.
there's this talk. Ralph Costa, I think. He did a talk on like the rising cost of games and how basically as the fidelity of games has gotten better and better, it's basically the costs have just become exponential.
Yeah.
And players demand more. And so
Yeah.
basically today, the only way to, you know, one of the one of the most sure ways to have a game that actually gets attention and gets traction is when it looks good. And in order to look good, you have good graphics, then you have to spend a shitload of money in production, creating all of the assets to the same level of fidelity that is really just not achievable for most indie games. And so, whilst there is a plethora of indie games, he said like most of them, like he was like something like 80% they will only make up to $100 in their whole
Oh
lifetime.
wow.
And
Jeez.
that's the ones that like within that 80%, there's only a few that actually make any money. Most of them make zero.
Yeah.
And then like the next 10%, it's like they might make $1,000, and it's like all the money is made at the top. Kind of like, you know, athlete like pro football. There's only like a few players earning the top. It's the exact same thing. But yeah, basically it's at the moment, like with games, it's insane the costs of production. So
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
anyways, yeah.
No, you're right. Like I went into this last job and I remember saying something off the top of my head, just because I kind of remember what a number was possible when I first started.
Hmm.
Nobody ever said the number of the cost of the game that we made. I have no idea how much it cost. But like I threw out a number going, "Oh, it's pretty important that we get this right." When you pitch it and you show this, the massive studio that owns us, like, "Hey, do you want to spend this much money on it?" And I think even the director was kind of like, "Huh." Like that, it thought it was kind of cute that I threw this massive number out there, because it was like basically double what I said, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is nuts!" Like,
Wow.
um,
Yeah.
at the same time, yeah, they cost so much, and these massive games. Obviously, I mean, now it's like it is kind of becoming where it's like four companies run, have the budgets to make these kind of games. But like,
Mm.
as far as I'm saying, Microsoft, Tencent, like they own so much of the industry now. But like
Mm.
at the same time, you see what these games make, and you're like, oh, well, their turn on investment seems pretty good to me. Like,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's right.
I'm like, yeah, those are
Yeah,
massive numbers to me, but I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. When you turn it around, you see like what some of these things make in like a month. You're like, what? Like, how is this even
I
possible?
know.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. It seems
bonkers.
like that's the sad part. Just like pro sports, it's like everyone knows the top earners. There's also the top earners of YouTube, right? Making
Right.
millions a month, and because of that, it turns the wheels of the newbies, like the rising, people getting into YouTube, people getting into video games because they heard that Call of Duty made $2 billion in its first hour of launch or something, and they're like,
Yeah,
that's where
yeah,
all the money is.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's basically to compete, you have to have just so much capital. It's just
Yeah,
crazy.
and the resources. I think that was something. It's funny how much they're like. Exactly, you've got this amount of capital, but if you don't have the resources and the talent to put it together, that's something that I find that I think they're trying to navigate. Excuse me. They're trying to navigate that a little bit because I think what I was going to say is like we going back to the technical part. One thing I'm noticing as well is like the technology in the amount of different softwares and like tools that are coming out is so quick, and then you're trying to keep up with that, and then you realize, yeah, you almost have to hire new people just to do that part. And like, the education is what I'm saying, keeping that education up, and then trying to figure
Mm,
out, is this going to look good enough in 5 years? Because the
mm,
production timelines are so long too that you go, oh, is something else, and of course something else is going to come out, and you're going to be like, oh, we don't have that, we need to have that, and then you almost have to figure out, hire a new awesome dude or lady or something that's just can do that,
yeah,
like, or
yeah,
like
yeah.
some sort of like, because it's not as simple as like, when I think, yeah, good people are something that I've realized that's definitely a hard one to come by as well sometimes, because usually all the good ones they're snagged up.
Mm.
And I just mean like people that, like, as far as like, when I was speaking about technical artists or some, because it's yeah, the talent
It,
pool
it it is a
is,
small industry. Like as big as it sounds with the money that's floating around, it's like everyone still knows everyone. It's like
yeah,
there's not that many of us really doing this,
no,
which is kind of
no,
wild. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I
And
mean,
and sorry, you go.
oh no, go for it.
Oh, I was gonna say actually, just like when you're talking about like, yeah, as you're working on the game, you need some new thing because that's now the rage. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
didn't even realize this until someone pointed out on Twitter that like the production time of video games is so long today that if you were to begin production on a game now with the PS5 that just came out, you would be working on it planning for PlayStation 6 or even 7, which is just crazy to me. I don't
yeah,
even know how you can plan for that because you don't know the specs of the hardware that you're building for. You have to
yeah,
just like guess. Like I guess the texel density will double again, and players will
yeah.
be expecting this, maybe more AI generated content, maybe more procedural content. We'll just have to plan, take a crap shot, and just adjust it as we go along. But it's
Yeah, well, I guess,
wild.
yeah, and I guess that's what I meant, like when you're trying to find the right people. Because I'm just speaking from my own experience and being at this newer studio, a startup, and like you're trying to build a studio and you're just trying to look for the talent, and you're looking for people that have a track record of, kind of being on top and knowing these things, to make your production go quicker, and like, and then also you have to remember these studios, they have their own they hire their own companies to kind of learn, that are looking into the whatever future technologies that we'll be using or something. They have their own researchers basically, I'm sure. um, But yeah, I think it is funny when you're working on something and this is just like, you're randomly like, oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna have like one weapon set. It's like you've got, one limb will do this, one limb will do that, and then a game will come out and it's like, no, they got dual wheel. Oh, we definitely need that as well. Or like
Yeah.
traversing, like, you think you're having this one world, you got to traverse something, and it's like it constantly changes, but yeah, I don't know. It's pretty complicated. That's why even when a game is bad, like it comes out, it does. This is always what frustrates me, and it frustrates me with movies as well. When I get, it's good to be critical, and it's good to have an eye of being like, what's wrong with this? Why don't I like it? Why is this not good? Why does it not hit my standards of like what's special? And then, but another part is I think it's always a good trait to be like, hold up, have you ever done anything like this, and do you know exactly how hard it is? Because sometimes it's like critiquing the dude that failed at the marathon or something and be like, yeah, I don't see you running either, dude. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's like
it is a bit, yeah, because like no one watches the Olympics and like dunks on the guy who came last,
yeah,
but we
no,
do
I
it
know.
all the time with movies and games.
Oh yeah, and
It's
it's
like,
man,
dude, look at this
no
pile of
joke.
shit. Holy
They're
hell.
so hard to make, and then you listen to people that are awesome at making them, and every interview they're like, no, it's so hard, and you're like, oh yeah, if it's coming from the dude that's awesome or the lady that's awesome, it's like, yeah, no, like, and I think it goes same with games. You can just imagine, man. It's like there's so many things that can just not work or go wrong that it's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
It's a challenging space for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to change, and if potentially AI will play a role. Let's venture into that. What are your thoughts on AI?
Man,
In 5 years from now, where do you think we'll be?
oh, in 5 years, jeez. Well, I didn't know where we'd be in 1 year, but
Yeah, I know.
I was told by somebody that I respect pretty well on this that they're like, you can't even really call it AI yet. And I was like, once you look into it, and I was like, yeah, I don't think it's actually intelligent yet. It's like, I don't know all the ins and outs, and I'm sure people know a lot more than I do. I try to do as much research, and the more research I saw on it, the more I was like, I see it. I get the tool thing. Believe us, like we all know, like, get the tool thing and how like it can do things and how it opens up stuff for people that don't. However, the whole scraping thing and using people's data without their permission, I was like, well, didn't we already have this huge discussion like 10 years ago that don't do that? Like every
Right.
website I go to says, do you allow us to gather what you're doing here? And I'm like, yeah, sure. But that's the only thing that, first off, that bothers me like crazy, where I'm just like, I've messed around with them too, and I can clearly see when it doesn't have the resources it needs to do what I want it to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
where
yeah.
I go, that's where it's stealing, images basically. As
Yeah.
far as in the future, the way I see it, I don't know, because I think there's probably a whole bunch. It's a little bit like the Wild West right now, and even the way the companies are set up. And if these massive corporations like want to use it as a tool for production to make money, and then they're making money, but then people aren't being paid for the information that they're using, I don't know. That's one part where I'm like, yeah, let's see how this pans out.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I
it is.
wish.
It's odd because it's like, from a legal standpoint, if they're being fed, if the machine's being fed an image, and then it's creating something new from the image, in that sense, it's just like like a human eye seeing an image and then turning that image into something else. Like it's been said before, like how many folders have we all got full of reference photos from like copyrighted Lord of the Rings and everything, and we're all
Okay,
using
yeah.
that in our work. It's just this is the first time a machine has ever been able to do anything remotely similar to humans, that now we're like, hold up,
Uh,
this is our territory.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Like we're fine like showing our friends and letting our friends reference our work, but we don't want to share it with the machine because the machine will always beat us in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is like it's true, but it's also like the law would have to change so quickly, so fast. I just don't think it's going to
Dude,
happen.
yeah, ethically, that's the thing where the ethics comes in, and then it depends on every single country you're in and stuff. That I think it's
Yeah,
already like the cat's out of the bag kind of thing. And
yeah,
like I told a friend, I was pretty basic about it. Like they're asking, and they're kind of really quite pro. And I was like, yeah, it's good. You still need somebody kind of like but who knows how long that will last. But I was just kind of like this. I was like, I just don't want people stealing my shit, and that's basically all I was like. I kept it pretty basic. And I was like,
right, right.
I'd rather nip that in the butt now and then just see if it's even possible. But I think yeah, I don't. The one thing is though, and this is where I was wondering how this will go into the like. I guess it all depends on the people. I won't lie though, I just don't have when I see art and I'm inspired by it, or I find something really like, yeah, exactly, inspiring, exciting. You know, you kind of get that emotion when you see something for the first time. I won't lie,
Mm,
I don't get it from AI because instantly you know it's AI and it just doesn't have that same effect. And maybe it's the same
mm,
as like when you hear a singer, you know, on stage live
mm. She's lip
compared
syncing.
to
Oh, okay.
well,
Yeah, yeah.
or like I'm just saying, like there's a difference when you hear somebody live singing and then you're hearing them on your crappy headphones. You
Yes,
know,
yes, yes, yes.
there's
I know
like
what you mean.
this.
Yeah.
There's like even if we're looking at a digital piece of art on a screen, I just saying I'm speaking for myself. Like I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. But then maybe as an artist, I just don't have. I definitely have a different response when I go, that's amazing. Like that person drew that. You know.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
like I don't have oh look at how rendered that is like I'm like yeah but yeah I just
Mm.
don't have that same response and I don't know
I know what you mean.
if
Yeah.
that will have an effect on the industry as well.
Yeah.
um
I don't think it'd have much of an effect on like the cost of production or like because like humans are going to be involved in like let's say like a giant game like Call of Duty. If like they could like 90% of it they could do with like AI, like the studio execs will always take that
oh yeah,
option. They'll take
yeah,
that route because of course like it's going to be far cheaper.
15%, 10%, they don't care like
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. They'll save money where they can, and it makes sense. But I just don't see it ever as a very long time. But anytime soon, removing a human at the controls in order to get it to do something correctly, because
Yeah,
yeah, you can type in a few keywords and you can get some interesting results straight out of the gate. But for one, it takes someone to curate that and to look at it and know that something's not right. Like a poor artist or like a non-artist, they'll type in a prompt and then they go like, perfect, that's amazing. Wow, I got my book cover, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
you see that prompt and you go, we're just getting started. Like we got to iterate another
Oh
1,000
yeah,
times
yeah.
through
I was
thousands of
yeah,
ideas, you know.
I won't lie. Like I've already saw it in crazy use at a place that I was, and it was like the Confluence page was being filled by everybody uploading their own Mid-Journey
Uh-huh.
art.
Yeah, yeah.
And what that did is kind of actually start hiccups in the production pipe. I thought like it was
Okay.
already hindering on other stuff that you go, oh wait, so what am I supposed to do? Oh no, no, we don't want you to do your whole job. We only want you to do part of your job. Is
Mm.
almost what it started to do, and that's where I was like, oh yeah, that's gonna be an issue. That's gonna be an issue just in a studio's development. I guess culture that
Mm.
that they will have to be aware of because it's going to be difficult to tell somebody like we're going to have you do half of this because the random I don't know not, like QA person put this on the Confluence and this is neat. uh, that I could already see that hindering like a good amount of the team creatively, so that was already an issue. And once you have morale issues, that's where like you're gonna have a trouble making a game. I think that's only something I did notice. the other thing that I do question, and this is where I'm like, there's definitely something weird going on, because anytime you see some of these successful, I call them successful AI artists, and you go, what are you putting in? They're very, very secretive, because there's
Mm.
certain things they're like, we do not want you to see exactly what we're putting in. And I think that if that gets developed up to the higher, like I said, into the higher part where it's like, companies like Disney are doing this, like that's where I'm like, oh, that's gonna get, yeah, I don't know, it's just gonna probably open up a whole new whatever. I mean, the music industry has been dealing with this for like 20 something years, so I don't know, like not
Mm.
the AI
Mm.
part, but about like how much is like, how much does this person own compared to that person. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I won't
It'll
lie though.
certainly
There's
get to like I could see each studio having like part of their intellectual property being their generating software, that's like
oh yeah,
specifically trained to do whatever it is, or they've got their own internal engineering team which can pull the levers and controls and the weights and the biases to get it to do the things that the art departments need.
yeah,
I could definitely see that. Like, in much the same way that, like, Pixar has got their own internal 3D tool, Marionette, or whatever it's called. Like, yeah, like, maybe studios will have their own version of Stable Diffusion that's been, trained on their own data
totally.
sets or something.
Yeah, I mean that's totally probably, that probably is exactly what's going to happen. Um, yeah, that's the only thing I could see. I mean, but it's funny that I worry more about just that kind of part of it, like the actual like what I see. I don't know, like what my job is and what I'm told. I guess it's like I can only speak from my experience. I mean, it's borderline. Like, there's some little things that I can use it for, but it's borderline useless. Like for what I'm told, and I just mean
Yeah.
it because there's so much story and narrative stuff that I have to kind of filter through myself. And
Mm.
AI is very difficult to tell a story through.
It
Basically,
is.
it's
It's very,
it's
yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
it's the thing is people go, oh no, I do see a story in that image. I'm like, no, yo, you're just seeing a random story that you're making up. You're not,
Yeah.
it's not precise enough. Like it's not hitting
Yes.
the
Yeah,
exact
exactly.
kind of so I mean, but like you said, where are we going to be in 5 years? I'm like, they'll probably figure out that part at some point. Like you said, they'll, once they, whatever, Disney uploads every single movie they've ever made across every single company
Yes.
they own,
Yeah, yeah.
like they'll be able to do their own thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I do wonder though. This is the thing. I don't know too much about it, but it's just like it is kind of funny that like certain countries, like I heard that there's parts of like China and stuff. Not parts of China, but China did have a thing where they're like, yeah, yeah, you can't use this in this country, like this certain one or
Yeah,
something like that. And I go,
yeah.
why? Why is that happening? But I don't.
I think that was I mean, with their history, I think it's to protect the Xi Jinping's likeness being used on AI generated
Oh,
images. Yeah.
wow, that's pretty
so
simple.
so so they
I thought it
basically
was
had
all
a
like
rule of
more.
like you have to say whether the image is AI generated or not, because they're kind of worried like the different people will be put in jeopardizing positions, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
people won't know if it's real or fake. So you have to declare this is a fake image. That's
I
the
get it.
suspicion around it. But yeah, yeah,
That, oh, okay. See, like I was thinking way more in depth. I was like, oh, there's got to be some reason, but it's a pretty simple answer. That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. That's right.
I'm like, there you go.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but we'll see.
yeah,
Like I said, I've got friends that love it and they do some cool stuff, but like emotionally responsive to it, I just don't. I,
yeah. I know what you
I'm
mean.
told.
I know what you mean.
I'm honest about it because I can spot it instantly. Like I instantly know it's AI.
Yeah,
And I would maybe when that stops happening, when I instantly can't notice if that's AI or not, then maybe that will change. But for now, it's just like, oh,
yeah.
cool.
That's right.
But it's
I
not.
mean, yeah. I'd say probably if I had to guess. I mean, look at like just the advancements that was made in the last year. Like probably by the end of this year, it'll like a lot of the telltale signs will start to disappear. Like hands. Everyone makes jokes about the crazy
Yeah, the
hands
hands
that
are
are
so bad. Yeah.
just all messed up. But for sure. Like they'll start to pick up on that stuff, and it'll just come through. Like, okay, I can't detect that this is AI or not.
The I did see one that is pretty awesome. And I say it's awesome because I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually where I don't know how to say it, but there's one called it's a product design one, and it's on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
And it does this thing, and you can clearly say that it's using its references of just old product design and the way it like it presents it, and it's
Okay.
very it's actually it is very cool. But what it does do that's very funny that it's great is that the logos are always kind of messed up on it. Like it's
Oh
trying to make
yeah,
a Nokia, it's trying to make a Nokia logo, but it can't quite. It's like all like exactly denoising it basically.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Pro tip for artists: learn how to use your time efficiently. If you are spending time making a shader that you've already built 100 times before, that is time not spent somewhere else more important. Poliigon solves this by giving you access to over 5,000 assets which are plug and play. Shaders, models, and HDRIs that are created to a reliable, consistent standard so you don't have to waste any time fixing them. And with our new Blender add-on, you can search, download, and import assets directly into your scene from your sidebar, meaning you can keep your focus where it needs to be, which is making good art. You can try 100 assets for free by clicking the link in the description or by going to Poliigon, Poliigon.com and signing up for a free account. I know what you mean. Like there is definitely a, the difference between live music and like, I don't know, even like, just drum and bass or like things that have just got a lot of computer behind them.
Yeah.
But,
well,
yeah,
that's
I don't
weird
know.
because people. Yeah, I remember back like there's always that huge argument like when like the synth and all this stuff. People are like, "Oh, that's all computer. That's not this." And you still hear people say nonsense like, "Oh, but that's not a piano or something." And it's just like, I don't know, man. If I like it and it's coming through my ears and I'm enjoying it the same at like that's
Yeah, I know.
it's
That's
all the
kind of what I
same.
feel might be said about AI. Like, you'll always have the purists of piano who are like, no, that's not a real like this was a machine. But and in the same
Yeah.
way, like I feel like in 10 years you'll have artists going like, yeah, but that's not real art drawn by the computer
Yeah.
did a lot of that. And then everybody
No.
else being like, yeah, but I don't give a shit. I just enjoy it.
No, and this is the same. It goes with digital art in the first place. I remember, especially when you started out, like when I started out, and Wacom tablets were just a year or 2 years old, and people would be like, "Oh, so you draw on the computer?" And they would honestly think that, "Oh, the computer's kind of drawing for you," or you use photos, so you're not really, And
Right. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
is that whole transition that we don't have to deal with as much anymore. I mean, it's still there for like the hardcores, but like
Yeah.
and AI might be end up being like that because like I said, I only speak to my experience and how much I've put into like my craft basically is like um I think that probably definitely changes my eye and my opinions on it the most. But if I show it to my wife or something, she's like, yeah, I think it's cool, because she doesn't have
Yeah.
that like sacrifice
Yeah.
that I've put in where I'm
I
like,
know.
no, no,
Yeah.
no, this is very special to me and this little thing. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
as a wise man once said, I'm just going to tend to my own garden, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't
That's right.
really do anything like.
Yeah. I think I think people are a little overly worried at the moment. It's like because we actually did a competition at Polygon over Christmas. We had
Hmm.
one day where everyone spent the day trying to create a piece of art with an AI generating software, and the winner won a prize. And it was going to be voted on by everyone. And so we basically had like 30-ish people all creating. It had to be a Christmas themed art. It had to contain either Santa Claus or a Christmas tree or both. And that
Okay.
was the only rules. And several people were using Midjourney, some were using Stable Diffusion, and everyone created something different. And everyone came out of it with the same realization that like, oh, I thought AI was like just makes like exactly the artwork that you want. Like, It does not. If you have
No.
a specific idea in mind, it's like trying to extract blood from a stone. It just
Yeah.
does not follow you, doesn't understand which direction you're going. It's like just trying to beat this robot into submission, and it's just not working.
Yeah.
But what it's amazing at
does.
is just generating, like if you put in like the looser your prompt, the better. Like if you put in like 3 words, you can just hit generate like 100 times and get 100 very different ideas. And then you pick from those, like that's an interesting idea. And then you maybe try to incorporate that or do a variation of that. But like you can't really put anything specific. That was what we all came out with. Yeah.
Yeah. Except for when you upload your own, or when you upload a image and it kicks off from that one, that's where that's the only thing I did see where I was a little bit like, well, but like I said, it looks at that, because I did my own experience. I was like, wait, how did you get that? Like, that result is so like precise, and then I took out one thing, this dash 4 or something, boom, it was totally like super crap, like Mid-Journey stuff, and then I put that back in, and it's like almost, I don't want to say photoreal, but it is like spot on. So I was like, oh, so that's its source. It had a source, and then it was like going from there. So you can direct it into a certain thing, but like you said, if they're trying to tell a story or something, like that's pretty difficult.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a challenge.
Yeah. I'll try to find that retro one though, because it is pretty.
Yeah. Yeah.
I won't lie. Like, I see the stuff and I'm like, especially for production design or something, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty fucking cool. Like.
Yeah. Nice.
I'm also like, don't steal my job.
Yeah. Yeah. Share the link with me after if you find it. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I was trying to look for it, but I didn't want to be like looking down.
No, it's all good.
Exactly
all
what
good.
I'm doing.
Yeah.
But
yeah, moving
cool.
to some greener pastures. Talking more about, I guess just advice for the youngsters out there, concept art as a growing industry. What do you think are some common myths or misconceptions about concept art?
Oh, that's a good question. I was hoping you would ask me an easier one. But no, this is good, actually. I'm glad you actually asked this, because I think after talking about AI so much, and I was working with, I've been working with some more junior artists where it is their first position. And you can spot, like, a little bit, like, I could see, people are worried about it, wondering about that. But as far as misconceptions go, I'm trying to think. If you go across the board and I think about all the different types of concept artists there are out there, that I think some people will see, for instance, somebody really famous that they like, and it seems like they're so popular and they've got, an ArtStation, and their work is, it's so photoreal, and so like it's obviously they go to that almost like I would say like the Naughty Dog style, like they're like that's what it has to be. That's what it has to be. That's kind of a misconception, because I know for a fact, like if you want to do that, there's certain art styles where you cannot do that other places because it takes so long, or you have to make sure you're developing where you can do it fast. But like, it's a misconception to think like that's what I need to be at, like to have a job in this industry. And
are you talking about like the final polished photoreal?
Yeah, it's like the keyframe where it's like so real, and you can tell that there's easily 5 to 7 days spent on one thing. And I just know, like, sometimes that is acceptable at certain places, but the misconception is like, oh, how long, like, how fast do I need to be? And it's like, you don't need to go to that level, basically, at a lot of places either. So you don't need to feel like I need to be that person, unless you want to. Like, there's nothing wrong. Like, if that's your goal, is to be, you've got basically your biggest influence. But like, I guess that's what I just want to say. Like, the misconception is like, you see that in games, for instance, and you want to go, oh, do I want to work on film? I'm like, believe me, you do not have 5 to 7 days on it, like on a piece, unless it's being constantly looked at, changed, constantly looked at, changed. Um,
Mm.
I guess yeah. So I don't. I think it's like sometimes if people are worried, like, oh, it's not to that level. But I will say, if you are going to want, if you really want to work exactly at a studio like Naughty Dog or something like that, yeah, go for that. Like, look at the artists they hire and try to, you want to
Mm.
reach that caliber.
Yeah.
But if you want to work on like a Marvel movie or something, like, yeah, you have to realize you will not have that time. Like, that time will be probably cut in half, I would say, in general. Like,
So
um,
in terms of like what does cut in half look like? So like the final polished photoreal image, what would it typically look like for a Marvel production? Like not a sketch, but a colored sketch. Does it have
no, it
lighting
wouldn't be a
information?
sketch. Like, yeah, it would be lighting information. I mean, this is where you would go into your tools, for instance. Like, this is depending on the artist that you are. Like, you see some of the Marvel stuff, like Maciej Kachara. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm saying his name right.
Yep.
Like, the stuff he did for Marvel is like amazing. So it's, I mean, but he's like an amazing artist. So like, there is that caliber, and I have no idea what anything. I mean, he might get those done in a day. Who knows? I just know from my own experience and working with other people, like, your tool sets, we're using 3D and stuff all the time for any sort of set design. It's kind of, it's an industry standard now. So, um, but yeah, you would be like, in a video game setting, I just know, like, you would definitely have 5 to 7 days probably on an environment piece if you wanted to. That's kind of a normal, like, sketch out the basic idea, and then you build up the image to a nice keyframe that the environment team, everybody can read the texture quality on stuff, and that kind of fidelity. In a film setting, as far as I know, with any sort of production designer, it's like you're banging stuff out daily pretty quick, and then they're
Mm.
looking at changes, and then you're not getting into the rough, like, you're getting into the rough details over time, but it's not like,
I see. Right. So
it's not like
you
I've
might
got
do
five
like
days and then I show it to you. It's like, no, that's not really how it
uh,
works,
so rather than do
if
like
that
let's say
makes
like a
sense.
full costume for a character, it might be like you're generating like belt variations, like 10 different
Yeah,
belts.
yeah, exactly. I think it's funny. I don't have much experience in like the prop department and that kind of the character stuff. Honestly, like, mine is my ability to sketch quickly and pump out ideas and drawing from my imagination and not
Mm.
needing so much reference. That kind of gives me a power to be fast. And so,
Mm.
like, a lot of the stuff I get hired for are these story beats where they just want to see like descriptions in the script. um, so when they're describing, this is going to be the pace here, this is where we'll need to build here, and then somebody else will actually concept that. I'm just kind of giving the story, like communicating the story beats,
Mm-hmm.
and what will probably be built and stuff. But like, going back to your question, misconceptions. The only other thing I was going to say is, like, one misconception is, when I guess some concept artists, when they look at my portfolio, especially, they're like, so what do you do exactly? Because when you do look at it, it is kind of all over the place. Like, I've
Mm-hmm.
got the set design stuff, and I've got this and this, and I always go, actually, don't use me as an example anymore, because it is not quite normal. Like, it's actually pretty important now, when we're talking about how big these teams are now in these productions, that one thing is, it's actually pretty smart to specialize. Like, if you really want to be a character person for somebody like Riot Games or, Blizzard, then make sure you're kind of developing in, like, you can have your own style, but make sure that weird scale on the fidelity is hitting about their benchmark, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, super cartoony is one, and like, hyper realistic is 10. uh, I would say specialize. If you want to be a character concept artist, it's best to specialize in that, and then while you're working, then you can move on to saying, like, trying to get into like prop design and stuff, if that's something you want to do. But it goes by verse with any sort of environment design or vehicles and stuff like that. So I didn't want a misconception being like, oh, can I just do what Richard does? And I'm like, I don't actually recommend it, because I literally do have clients that are a little bit like, oh, I'm confused. Like, what? So do you want to do this or do you want to do this? And I'm like, like so.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Does that help? I mean, it was a tough question actually because it's so
Yeah, yeah. No, no. It's
broad.
I do get it. Like, it's interesting. I've heard like, because like Jad Saber, when I spoke to him on here, his was the first where he was explaining that they do these fully polished images, and I was like, wait, I thought that was a myth. I thought nobody does fully polished scenes.
Oh yeah. Well,
but
I mean, that's the thing.
Is that a Naughty
it's gotta
Dog
be
thing?
next-
Like, are they known for that? Like, just throwing money
I mean, it's
at the
you
environments?
see the art. Yeah, I think it's not. I think they actually found out it's probably very. It's not just the money thing. They probably find it very useful. Like I said, when you're doing a concept, you're not like, here's this, here's this, here's this. What they're doing is they're establishing for the rest of the team, like, this is the texture quality we're gonna have throughout this scene. While you're walking through, this is already giving the
Right.
lighting artist their information. This is giving the texture artist. This is also giving, I don't know, who knows, the rest of the team that working on the tech side, how much foliage there is going to be around these players, so they kind of get an idea like how dense they want the world. I think, and when Jad, tell you the truth, Jad's got probably more experience in that. It's better to listen to him because I've already know like what he's been working on. He's like, yeah, I do get the time to do the fully polished stuff. I just don't know exactly going from a film thing to a game thing. I know there is a big gap. Like, it's like you can kind of do stuff, but like I said, it all depends on the tools you're using because they're getting, obviously, this like with Blender and everything. And I think I told you this when I met you, was like how much like your information you put out there is changing the industry and how much the standard is already, people are learning from you, and the speed and the quality of the pieces that they're pumping out because of all this stuff. It's like it's really changing. So like I said, the tools that you use and everything, and if you're primarily a 3D person, you get faster and faster with it. It's like, some of these things obviously don't take 5-7 days, but that's why it's really, man, it is kind of a tougher question. I just can only speak from my experience but I work a lot more in actual design as well. So what I mean by that is, if you look at my website and you see what I did for Eternals, like that was a city. I had to design Babylon, and I was going through, how big is this city? Is it 2 kilometers long? Is it 1 kilometer? Is it this? And you go through that stuff, and you don't get to do that final piece. I mean, after like, I was already on it for like a month, like going through stuff, and it's not like I get to do this one cityscape and be like, oh, there's your concept, if you know what I mean. Then, yeah, so that's I guess the difference.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. It's I mean, maybe more of a more general question then. Maybe something a little different. Just for, the young up and comers who want to become concept artists. Like, let's say, my favorite question, you had to train a newbie to become a concept artist, and you only had 1 year to do it for them to become employable. What would you focus on? What would you leave out? What would their training regime look like?
Damn, Andrew, you got some good questions. That's prep, man. Personally, if it was me training them and they had 1 year, I would leave out the drawing stuff and the traditional skills that I have and stuff. They take too long. That's something that you don't learn overnight. It's like just constant, look at me, 20 something years since I took drawing serious, and this is where I'm at still, and I still draw a lot every day almost. So what I would do, honestly, if they wanted a job, I would make them focus on 2 inspirations of their artists that they want to be like. Basically, I'd be like, okay, so you don't overwhelm yourself with, oh, I love the TV show Arcane, but I also love something that's I don't know, Call of Duty. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, okay, no, you need to focus because this is something I've dealt with. This is why I was like, yeah, I like this, and I would be like, no, focus and pick 2 that you want to be like, because if you've got that year, and then I would be like, okay, so you see the way they work, and you're kind of studying their work and where they're at and their influences, and you look at their influences, and I would be like, try to make sure whatever references you're using to develop your images, and like, I'd also pick a genre. If it was a year, I'd be like, can you stick within this kind of realm of genre? So you're like, I want to be, exactly Call of Duty, or do you want to go like Star Wars sci-fi, or do you want to go in this in between of like fantasy and sci-fi? Like, I just, even if it is a mix, I would be like, just focus on that kind of, like, don't take it too far. It can be like this. That would be the first. I guess this is more philosophy on it. I would be like, okay,
No, that's
so
that's
there
useful. Yeah.
yeah, and then you would have that as basically, that'd be a post-it note on your desk, so you're just reminded, like, hey, don't step, in between, stay in the lane, basically, for this
Stay in
year.
the lane.
And
And
that's
you're talking
would be
about like in terms of style and subject, like sci-fi
yeah,
photorealism. I got two
yeah.
inspirations of that category. They're not completely separate
Because
because you can
people
get
do ask
all
about
over the place.
yeah, you can get all over the place. However, people do, the style thing is another weird thing that, honestly, Andrew, I've been trying to figure out, because people have asked me about this a lot, and then I'm trying to even do my own little talk or tutorial on it, and it is confusing even for me to break down, because style is something that, like, it's both like a natural thing that is, you're just, I feel like you're it's your eye that you're kind of born with a little bit, and it's what you're attracted to, and it's also the way you developed, and that's kind of what I think goes into your style. But for, if it was a beginning artist, I would go from that, and then I'd be like, okay, what we're going to focus on is, what's your subject matter? And that's where it would be like, what do you want to do? Like, it would be like, you're either doing environments, or you're doing characters, or you're doing like vehicles or something. I'd be like, keep it very simple at first, and then the next is the software thing, is kind of something that they would have to just that would be tutorials. As far as, it would be straight up, I'd just be like, Blender and Photoshop is what you
Okay.
need to
Yeah.
do. Then if I saw the development like continuing, and another thing, I wouldn't confuse them with too many tutorials. There would be stuff that I would be like, you can learn you can learn this one thing, like kind of the technical side of stuff on, how things work inside some of these softwares. But as far as an artist tutorial, I'd be like, you see this tutorial and this one, basically redo those tutorials like multiple times until you know that you've almost got to, and develop your own images or your own ideas from those, and then over time you'll have a process down that you can adapt to new ideas, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
say you had to design my office, and I was like, all right, you're going to do a tutorial, you're going to design this office the way it is, and you've got your photo reference, boom, all right, you do it. Now redo the tutorial, but conceptualize new stuff into it, and then redo it again, and then I think that will help establish, like, you generating your own ideas on stuff, and you're using somebody else's pipeline of work, which makes you, if that makes sense. Like,
Yes.
it's a process. So that way,
Follow
your
someone
time
else's
is also,
process on a new subject.
exactly, because your process is now predictable. You've got a timeline. You can go, hey, how long will it take you to design this office? And you already know in your head, you're like, well, that one took that, so it'll take me 3.5 days or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
you can already tell your art director or somebody like me, be like, okay, cool, you've got, I'll give you 5 days then. Like, if you say, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And then I would do something like that, and then as they become more like, whether they're trying to use Photo Bash in Photoshop, or they want to, which is actually what I would probably, like I said, the traditional stuff, it just takes longer. So if you have a year, it's like, it's not long enough. So I'd be like, learn how to do, these kind of like photo collage things, and the tools you can do to kind of, cheat your way through stuff, which is smarter.
That's
And I say
interesting.
cheat in a good way, because it's better, people trying to hand paint stuff, it is fun, but it's also like, what's more fun is making like really good images. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
I would do that. and as they develop and they get smarter with like something like Blender and Photoshop, and the reason why I say because now with the sculpting and stuff in Blender, then if they become more, I would be like, okay, now I would start jumping into using other tools that are linked to it, like ZBrush and stuff like that, because or 3D Coat, or if you want to just whatever I've never actually, I don't know too much about the actual like sculpting in Blender, I gotta say, just because I know ZBrush, that I've always used that bridge. So
ZBrush is way better.
Okay, it's a very powerful concept tool once you get to learn it a bit more too. So that would be my guess, and I would like to see. Oh, if you had a year too, I would also, it's also, you need to put in your deadlines. Like you would have to be like, I'm gonna learn this. Like you have to hold yourself accountable. Like if you started in January, you're like, I want to have a finished thing by March or something. You know what I mean? Like, like I don't know. I guess that's something
you want
that
to time
they
box
say,
it.
like basically, if you're training for a marathon, they do the same thing. You're like, no, by this time you're running this, by this time you're running this. And
right.
Yeah,
exactly. Set some milestones.
Yeah, just do something, because it will help you, I think, in the, maybe in the long run. But
yeah.
Yeah, I guess it would be something like that. I mean,
yeah.
Is that...
No, that makes that's really interesting. I hadn't even considered the digital versus traditional, but I do remember, like, because I tried to learn drawing. Like it was like 3 years where I was like really getting into it, and I followed like a lot of like Proco stuff really early on.
Yeah.
And learning about charcoal and the eraser and getting the lines to be straight and a lot of this stuff, and then you switch to digital, and it's like, holy shit, there's layers, and I can use this tool to make the lines straight, and it's like, oh, this is way easy, and there's undo.
Yeah.
My God.
Yes.
What a novelty.
Well, yeah, what I want to say about that is like the reason why we learned it that way is because we didn't really know better. So that was something that I just did, and also we enjoyed it. It's just that technology changed well enough where I'm like, man, I don't really draw traditionally, and I don't have a setup for it, but I still enjoy it. And the other reason why I said it, it's like there is no point to it if that's like any job you go to, they don't want you to draw traditionally.
Exactly.
Sure, if you've got that skill.
Exactly.
And also, if you want to learn that on the side, then go for it. I'm just saying, like, if you want a job within a year, like, this is kind of
it's a pressure cooker. You gotta be focused.
It's an idea on how to do something, and also the misconception is too, like, make sure you're smart about what's in your portfolio. I guess that would be the other thing. Like I said, you don't need a lot. Like, it is that same saying I'm sure people have said. Being less is much better if it's just really good. It's your best stuff, basically.
Yes.
And
especially after a year, you shouldn't have that many pieces.
No, I mean, yeah. It just, I guess,
a couple
that's
of
all
good
on
ones.
People's work. Yeah, a couple of good ones. I would say that, and then if it's really focused, because I've had a few artists go, this is my character stuff, and then you'll find they'll be in an interview and people will ask them, oh, is this all you do is characters or environment stuff or character? And I think some younger artists feel this pressure to be like, oh no, I can do it all. And it's like, no, don't be worried about that. Just be like, it's okay to be like, no, this is my lane that I enjoy, and I'm open. I'm open to learn that other stuff. But right now, I think, I guess that's kind of a word of advice.
Yeah. Having something that you're, for one, passionate at, you actually want to do. I think that's also, kind of bad advice some people have of like, you got to do what gets you a job in the industry. Which, I mean, if you need money, you got to take what you can get. But also, like, you can end up doing a job that you just fucking hate. Like, if you don't like vehicles, like, you could just end up being stuck making vehicles because that's the job that you got, and then that's all your work for the next 5 years was vehicles, and suddenly you're the vehicle guy, and like you're like, I actually wanted to do something else.
And that's spot on, actually, Andrew. I know that we're running out of time, but like I was gonna say, one thing is that reminded me of one thing I feel like junior artists especially are running into now is this goes back to the production of games and how long they are. So they can work on a game for 4 years. It might get canceled. They can't show any of their work.
Ooh, brutal.
So,
God damn.
and these other companies are kind of asking now, they're like, yeah, but have you shipped a title yet? But I was like, yeah, titles take 5 something years now. Like, it's like, what? It's becoming this thing where I'm like, oh, that's got to be pretty frustrating, you know? Like,
Yeah.
and this is mainly for the games industry, but I have no way of fixing that. But I will say, this all depends on people's work ethic. I like, I think I'm pretty proactive, and I enjoy what I do. So I'm always pumping out stuff outside of my work stuff. But yeah, I would say, like you said, you could get stuck where you're making vehicles. You don't even like them that much.
Yeah.
Or like, or no, like you weren't that
Yeah.
good and you're working on like a football game that you're like, I don't want to, like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
right. This was never my passion, but I'd need to take the
no.
money. I need the job, and now that's
Yeah,
your whole
sweet
portfolio.
bonuses and stuff. Like,
Yeah. That's
yeah,
that's
I
how you end
think
up in mobile games. Yeah, yeah, with loot boxes
it's just
and yeah. Mm.
stuck.
But that was an interesting point you were talking about the difference between what, because of how you learned through traditional at the start, and you sort of mentioned, like, it sounded like you weren't sure if you should even recommend traditional, and I can feel this with like a lot of teachers actually. Like, you can see, like old school, like professors, and they're still teaching people this old method because that's how they did it back in the day. And it's like, yeah, but we moved on from that. There's this other method, but then there's always parts of that which is still relevant, and it's this constant battle of like priorities. Like, what should I actually work on? What is the most important thing? Because there is value in the traditional. And some people swear by it. If you skip the traditional and you just jump straight to digital, you will have missed something important, but almost like it's hard to quantify into words exactly what that is.
Well, the thing is that, like, and this is you can learn this other stuff. Like, the software is making everything easier, obviously. So, and you can learn it. There's tons of resources. And the thing about the software across the board, even if it's Photoshop and you draw in Photoshop, but like, for instance, you can become very good at 3D stuff, and you can become very good at this stuff. In my experience, that's why I hope I'm not hurting anybody's feelings. My superpower is my sketching ability. Every place I've worked, it's what's made me valuable, like, compared to other people there. Like, they're always like, yeah, have him do it because and you can see the way ideas get processed pretty quick as well. And it's just because it's like my traditional background and how much I sketch, that is kind of my, so it is valuable. But like I said, man, I took drawing, like, I always drew, but it's when I took drawing was very serious was September 2000 when I moved to Seattle for art school. And dude, that was 23 years ago, and I'm still just here. So and if you look at my work 10 years ago, it's not as good as it is now. Like, it takes a long when you're like, you want to learn, it's like, dude, it takes so long to be good at it, or at least me in my experience, that but then, there's always freaks out there that are just like, it clicks,
smashing it out.
Like, the Evan Amundsen, that's the one guy where I'm like, it's like, I've never seen a bad drawing from him, and he's been online.
How do you spell his name? Sorry,
Evan Amundsen. It's Evan, and then Amundsen is, I believe that's how you say his last name. Amundsen. He's a Norwegian. But it's funny, like, when you're thinking about drawing stuff, like, sometimes I see, like, people who, like, draw like him, and, like, I mean, I think he's amazing. That I'm always wondering, like, I would love to see what his old drawings look like, just to see, like, if people are like, and how long, or he just maybe, like, there are people.
Oh, this is like a senior artist.
Oh no, dude, he's like, that's what I'm saying. He's a senior artist, but I mean, to me, he's one of the best drawers I've ever seen. Like, he's so good at drawing that, I do wonder. I'm like, God, what does the old ones look like?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Because you
that's
always
so
wonder,
true.
like, I know you weren't always this good, but I would love to see that weird curve. Like, where did it,
Yeah,
like, because, you know,
that's
and I
so
knew this
true.
guy, I know this guy, Matt Barrett, that is kind of on the same, like, spectrum. And it was just like, I think, you know, there's weird, like, little, I don't want to say prodigy, but there are people that are just substantially good. I just think, like, from my experience, it's taken me a long time to
Right.
be. And so I don't recommend people going, oh, could I be like you in a year? I'm like, that's possible. I mean, you never know, like, maybe, but I don't want to, like,
Right.
it's a lot of work.
It's a
So,
lot of work. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking to some people who went to like art center and I don't know, like Finian and Ross Tran, and they were saying like
mhm.
that they were drawing like 11 hours a day, just like
Yes,
constantly, like
yes,
400, you know,
yeah,
sketches a day, and it was, you know, everybody was burned out, everybody was exhausted, and the bar was raising ever higher because they're, you know,
yeah,
just this white heat of talent at this school, and
yeah,
you know, everyone was just depressed and pressurized, and
yeah,
I'm like, I'm they swear by how much they learned, right? But at the
yeah.
same time, it's like it's not easy, and it also
No,
sounds like if there was a shortcut, they would have already taken it, you know?
yeah, yeah. There is. That's the thing. There's no real shortcut. Like, it's either you can. It's like, I always say it's like learning an instrument or a language or something. It's like, no, it's either you're practicing it every day and it's becoming, you know, part of your. It's like going to the gym and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you're not
Yes.
going to you. It's something that you have to do every day. And like, it's funny, yeah, because with Ross, I remember. I think Ross was in school when I discovered him as well, and uh, yeah, you could see how much he's working. And I was going to say it was the same when we were in school. I would go, people go, how did you learn to this part? And I was like, I was going to life drawing 12 hours a week. Um,
Mm,
and it would be Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturday mornings. And they're 4 hour sessions, but they're made for animation students. So it was short poses. We weren't
okay.
doing 1 hour long poses. This was none of that. We were filling pages, man. And it was like we would almost have a friendly competition where it's like, how many pages did you do this week? And it'd be like, oh, I did 85. And then it would have these little
Jeez.
thumbnail sketches. These aren't even pages, like one drawing a page. They're somewhere.
Wow. That's crazy.
But like, yeah, but like you said, that's what I say. You were just we were drawing traditionally a lot, but we were pumping drawing very small figures and like do, and you would just fill up these pages like crazy. And you know, like you said, it was burnout, but I was given really advice that I kind of agree with. But this is where it's like, hey, everybody's background is a little bit different, and I just was like, basically, I was told by a professor, a guy, he was storyboarding, and he said that he goes, you, he was like, basically, you've got 2 years to basically you see there's a job out there in 2 years. There's going to be a job you're going to apply for that you have no experience, and you're going to be applying against people like maybe 20,000 other people that want that same job or something.
Okay.
And he
Yeah.
goes, he's basically saying in 2 years you need to become a professional. And that's where I was like, oh, how do you become that? And it's just, oh, okay, that's why we were just like, you just get really good at drawing and I can just figure out the other stuff. So
Mm,
when we
mm.
bring it back to the question, what would you tell somebody in a year? I'm like, I think unless you're a prodigy, like, it just takes long. It
It
takes a
takes
lot of
long.
work,
It
and
does.
it depends on where your passion's at. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
I know what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah. It's odd. It's like there's no shortcuts, and yet at the same time, we can all recall times in our life where we didn't really grow,
yeah,
where we were drawing the same, doing the same stuff, and kind of like just treading water, like doing the
yeah,
same stuff. Like I felt like sometimes I was almost feel like I was going backwards, like putting in the hours, but like not switched on. Like it was at the end of the
yeah,
day, I was exhausted, and like I was just going through the motion, and maybe
yeah,
picking up some sloppy habits along the way, and so putting in the hours, yes, but also not mindlessly. It's almost
no, exactly.
like you almost need like they talk about like great games. is the ability to find the sweet spot between this is too boring and this is too challenging, and just finding that perfect moment where you sit in that and it's just enough challenge that you're interested, but not so much that you feel like crushing depressed and you just want to quit. So like for art, it's like finding that spot and also knowing what it is you should freaking focus on, because that's half the time you're like, okay, well, I should be learning perspective then. And it's like, no, wrong. I spent 3 months learning perspective. That was the wrong one. I was supposed to learn the other one first. Shading, that was, yeah.
Yeah, I will say this, and then you bring up a really, really good point, because I made the same mistake. I was like, put the work ethic in, work it, and then you're right. You need to learn how to practice the right way and functionally. And I think that's why when I mentioned the goals, you're setting your goals, or you having your little notes that you're like, that is my bar that I want to try to hit. And then you're learning how to practice that.
Yeah.
The whole thing, like you said, I forget about people being like, oh, I practice perspective and stuff like that. I think it's funny because I will say this. The only thing I shout out to the people learning some 3D stuff and everything like that, I know the 3D, the camera, you've got your perspective fine, but I would just suggest one thing. Atmospheric perspective is what I do see young artists need to learn, because they don't
Atmospheric perspective?
As in, like, yeah, things in the background through the haze, they're less saturated. Things are like, it's like they get the perspective is just fine, but then you'll find like the values are kind of all over the place, and like it's not, So that's something when you brought that up, I was like, oh yeah, that's one thing I always notice.
Yeah.
I was like, I know you totally set this up in 3D and it's all correct, but I was like, that's not feeling it. But the other thing is, you're totally right. Learning how to practice and setting your goals is really good, and not just putting in the mindless hours, because I still do that. I sometimes will still be like, oh, okay, I'm drawing right now. And then I'm like, what am I doing? I don't really want to be in the action of drawing, but I'm not really, my mind's not really there. And I have to kind of switch that off and be like, okay, go do something, or like,
exactly. Yeah, like you could be like listening to a podcast or something. You're just like wasting time because you're not.
1000%.
Yeah,
wasting time. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really good to actually say. Don't put in mindless exercise time, is what we can just call it. But,
yeah, and find like that. That's the thing. Is like, what is the curriculum? Like I remember finding like. After like 3 years of like trying to figure it out, that was what I came away with, was like, damn, someone ought to make a freaking curriculum for because like you really don't know as a beginner what is the most important thing and what it is that you've gotten wrong. Like I almost need like, I don't need like, an hour call with someone. All I need is to like maybe every week just email someone like, this is my latest artwork. And then the expert goes, you should be learning proportions for the next week, Yeah. Like, or whatever it is, or shading, like, because that, like, I just don't know what the weaknesses are. What is the weakness?
Yeah.
What can you see that if I fixed that thing, it would get better? And that's really it. Like, it's just a constant struggle of like, I just got to keep practicing at something. I just don't know what it is, so I'm going to guess. And I just, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm right there with. I do remember just being very lost.
Yeah.
Like just being like, I love this guy so much, and I love this guy, and then you realize that, you're just like, you're trying to be like them, but you're not. You shouldn't copy it too much. But then, and I'm speaking about silly like Ashley Wood and stuff, illustrators that I'm like, I would never get a job in this industry if I actually drew exactly like them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It took me a while, and then it's hard. You're right though, a curriculum and having a setup and being like, try this. And other thing is simplify. This is one thing. That's another. I'm glad you brought this up. My big thing is when anytime I'm working with a junior, I'm like, simplify. They try to take on too much, too big. Their ideas, like the idea in your head is always way larger than it should be probably. And it's like, and I mean that as in like, just for an example, somebody tries to do a ship scene and they've like, oh, and then these guys are jumping here, and then there's this here, and there's a wave crashing here and stuff. And it's like, no, when you're starting out as an artist, just simplify. Like, go into a basic, like a smaller, shape language and scene, and just try to make that look good. Yeah, like and don't over like you can overwhelm yourself with like the scope of your ideas, I guess is what I'm saying. Like your world building or whatever you're doing, and it's like, all right, just like when
It
you
is
know
true.
that you took it here, try to dial it down to 50 and see what's left. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like excuse me.
It's also really helpful to do that just so that you end up actually finishing something. Because like the big joke like everyone has, like everyone's like all the new 3D artists want to create like a feature film, right? And so they'll or all the new game devs, they want to make Call of Duty, right? As the thing that they're working on, and like so they'll have these insanely ambitious goals that there's just no way they'll ever get it done because they don't know how long things take. So like in the same way of like you've got this crazy thing with all this stuff going on, like maybe you won't actually like get that done for like 2 months because like that's a lot
Yeah.
to do properly and do well. And simplifying it means you'll for one get to actually finish it.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it's the simple things of being like, you don't need to do like, let's not see 12 the pages of these thumbnails. Like do four different thumbnails where you're doing a different perspective, it's a different camera angle, it's a different depth perspective, whatever. Pick four, and then okay, you've got your one that you like. Now move that forward. Don't overcomplicate it where it's like, I'm gonna do 15 or 16, and then you know what I mean. I guess that's a good idea for them to
Interesting.
maybe, because
Less
I do know
ideas.
like what they see is what they see what the pros are doing, and like it's like that's because we can handle that much. Like you're over time you can train yourself to get better at it. But like when you're starting out, I think always simplify. I do the same with my drawing. Some people ask me like, why you block out these shapes, and I was like, whatever I'm drawing, I'm like, that's the one thing I'm always. Now it's almost subconscious. It's like simplifying, like breaking it down to its basic shapes first, and it just like, and then building on top of that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Damn,
because it can
man.
be daunting,
Yeah.
especially now with all the tools and everything. It's good, but
Friggin' AI.
yeah. Well, we'll see where that ends up.
I do actually feel bad for the youngsters. Like at Lightbox Expo, like all the kids that were like, "But what do we do now?" We're like,
Oh, I know.
"I don't know, man.
Oh,
I don't know."
I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's see.
The AI is already better than you, and will be better than you in 5 years' time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
It's
a tough
it's a
one.
rough one.
Yeah.
But like I said, tend your own garden, I guess, is the
Yes.
best philosophy. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's the other like industry like pipelines don't change that quickly. I think like as a stat like big studio pipelines. I mean, even with our small team like Poliigon, like we're dabbling with AI at the moment, and it's like. We'll think of like a use case for it, like, oh, maybe we could use it to generate textures for books that we'll offer as models, right? Book texture, like book cover things. And
Yeah.
it's like, then you like, all right, so someone has to figure out how to use the software to get some book cover, and then like happenstance their way into this, like the right prompts to generate the thing, and then they've got to find out a way to leave space for text for the book cover thing to go. And then you look at the hours spent on it, and it was like, well, shit, we could have just fucking farmed it out to a contractor. Or like just
I know.
hired someone cheaper to do it the traditional method, or like
So this is what we found too. Yeah, what we found, what I was telling you before, is like, so we've got a shit ton of these images coming in, and kind of explaining to the team like, this is the overall, this is a first take on a tone or anything. And it was funny because some of them like, yeah, that's nice. At the same time, I was like, you could probably find a better photo than this. Like,
Yeah.
this is, like
I know.
it's like
We've had
it's like,
Google
there's
Images for years now.
Yeah, but there's photography that's better than this. But then what it still does, it still goes, okay, so we've got a tone. We've got it's almost setting a, I don't even want to say, it's not setting any sort of standard. It's just, it's putting an image in somebody's head. And then it's like, you still have to take it to where it needs to go after narrative, design, blah, 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 tech gets involved. But like you said, who knows? Who knows in a year, 5 years?
Yeah.
Right now, we're pretty lucky, though. I will say that's the thing I did say. It can't draw yet. So it can piece things together.
Yes.
But this is why we have the hand problem and everything. There's something that I'm sure they're trying to figure it out, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
They'll get to it. Well,
Yeah.
Richard, I think we should leave it there. My wife is waiting for me to have dinner. But final note to leave off on. Where can people find you? Where are you most active?
You can pretty much look up Flaptraps, Google it, and you'll find if you went Flaptraps YouTube, you went Flaptraps Instagram, Flaptraps on Twitter, and then ArtStation. It should be pretty straightforward. I mean, those are the things I try to be the most active on, and so that's where they can pretty much find me.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks, Richard. It was great we could talk.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. It was fun.